afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the second webinar of Planet Goals project. My name is Beatrice, and I'm delighted to be here today to host this second webinar. I would like to thank you all for participating. And today we'll be guiding you through this session. We will discuss how the meaning of sustainability has evolved over time and how the SDGs and ESG frameworks are increasingly becoming strategic tools that guide decision-making, investments, innovation, and skills development. I would like to remind you that you are welcome to ask questions during the presentation or at the end of the webinar. So we can start with our first speaker. It's my pleasure to introduce you Stefano Pirilli. He's the CEO of 𝗍𝗂𝗃𝗃 Pro and a research fellow at University of Turin. In his presentation, SDGs and ESG Beyond Sustainability, What It Means Today, he will help us understand how these frameworks are changing strategies, skills, and perspectives for the future. So, Stefano, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Beatrice. Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being. Thank you, Beatrice and Novareckon, for this invitation. And in this first part of our webinar, I would like to set up the scene of this webinar for me and for my colleagues, Giancarlo and Nicole, then will follow me. And I have three goals for this part. First, to clarify what we mean about sustainability and what sustainability is today. The second point, to explain how European Union deals with this matter. And third, to connect all this with our work, of course, in the project, but in our daily work. And I start from a very, very simple question. When we hear the word sustainability, what is the first thing we think of? For many people and for many organizations, the sustainability is carbon footprint, carbon emission, pollution, solar panel, waste sorting, nature, forests, oceans. That's true. So if I have to identify with the word, I say environment. This is a vision understandable because for a long time, sustainability was mainly communicated as an environmental issue. We talked about climate action, climate change, energy, pollution, and so on. But the problem is that this vision today is not enough. If we identify sustainability only with the environmental side, we do not understand SDGs, but also we misread what ESG is about, and we cannot see the very picture vision that the European Commission have about this transition that is both green and digital. So the point is to clean the table and to put a bit of order in these concepts. And we start from sustainability. Sustainability often is confused with a department or with a man or woman who deals with energy consumes, carbon footprint report, many measurements of environment indicators. But firstly, sustainability is a question. Can this system continue over time without breaking? So the duration of the system, and the system can be many things, can be a company, can be a school, can be a city, of course, a value chain or a supply chain, but also even a country. In this vision, environment is part of this, for sure, but is not the whole story, is not all the story about the sustainability. For example, if the climate is stable but inequalities explode, the system is not sustainable. If in a company, a company is green on paper, but it burns out workers, the company is not sustainable. If a region, a part of a country, attracts digital investment but cannot protect data, personal data, or provide sustainable infrastructure, that region, that system is not sustainable. So green is necessary for sustainability, yes, but is not the whole story. I say again. Then we have the Sustainable Development Goals that you know very well. Of course, in Sustainable Development Goals, we have environment. They include environment, but also include other matters, as you know, I say poverty, health, education, gender equality, decent work, innovation, sustainable mobility, sustainable cities, peace, partnership. So what I say is that Sustainable Development Goals are not just a green agenda, but I think that they are a map of all pieces that must move together. And in this frame, for people that works in vocational education and training, this is very important, because we have to move all skills with this transition that is not only green. And then we have ESG, environment, social, and governance. ESG is often used when we talk about sustainability reporting or sustainability reporting standards. So when an organization has to be compliant with some regulation or some directive, or some international standards like certification. But ESG at the beginning, when in its origins, had a meaning more interesting. I say that ESG is a lens used by banks, investors, rating agencies, large clients, public sectors, and so on, to read how an organization works. For each side, so for environment, we look with ESG how the organization uses resources, treats waste. To as social side, we look how it treats workers, but also consumers, customers, suppliers. And G, that I think is the most important factor, we look how decisions are made, but also how risks are managed. That is a very, very important point. And also how transparent and accountable the organization is. So in this way, we see the very, very meaning and the very content of ESG. In fact, many studies and many market analyses say that organizations with very stronger ESG performance have fewer defaults, more access, better access to credit with banks and investors, and more stable performance. I say economics and financial performance. So in this vision, we have sustainability, that is the big question, the big aim. Then we have sustainable development goals that are the roadmap, and ESG is one of the tools that allows us to see the very actual status of the organization. If we separate that tools too much, we get lost. And in this vision, how European Union works. European Union, and particularly European Commission, speaks about the twin transition that is built on two main pillars. The first one is European Green Deal, and the second one is the Digital Compass. So we see green and digital together. Two policies, one transition, the twin transition. In the first pillar, the European Green Deal, that was announced at the end of 2090, we have a very main idea that is ambitious, to make Europe the first carbon neutral continent by 2050. And it means a long series of policies and action, for example, reducing greenhouse gas emission at least 55% by 2030, promoting circular economy. But all this action in environment side has to take place, making sure that this transition is done in a way to respect people and planet, to respect the fundamental rights of people established by the International Declaration of Human Rights. So the European Green Deal is a new development model, not a green claim. Okay. We start from this to say that the green transition has digital and social issue, and the environment goals also take place to promote investments, to promote innovation, and also industrial and social policies. On the second hand, on the digital side, we have Digital Compass or Digital Decade, because it's 2030, so from 2020 to 2030. And here the idea is Europe wants a digital transformation, yes, but this digital transformation has to be human-centric and sustainable. So not only more technology for everyone. We have to introduce digital technologies, but with human in the center and in a sustainable way. And European Commission has 4 cardinal points of goals. The first one, the skills. So at least 80% of adults should have a basic competences, skills about digital by 2030. The second point, the infrastructure. So secure, performant, and sustainable infrastructure that hosts digital technologies, for example, data centers. The third point about business. Also, the companies has to introduce cloud digital resources, more digital tools in their processes, and also, if necessary, artificial intelligence. And the first point is public services. Also in public sector, also for the public services, public administration has to introduce digitalization. So here in Digital Compass, we have skill, business, and governance plan. In Green Deal, a new development model, and here a skill business and governance plan for digitalization. And this is the essence of twin transition. So why we say green and digital in the same sentence? I think that there are three reasons at least. First, you cannot manage the green transition without digital tools. Think about, for example, monitoring performance and emissions, optimizing logistics, smart grid for energy, advanced manufacturing, precision agriculture, and so on. All of these activities need sensors, needs data, needs infrastructure. So without digital, we cannot have green transformation. The second point, the second reasons, I think you cannot talk seriously about digital transformation if you don't ask about sustainability. What I say, for example, about data center, we have to ask how much is the consumer electricity, the water, if these generate waste, what is the social impact, the impact on education and working. Third reason, the way we design and we govern the digital transformation and the digital technology will influence who benefits or who is left behind the green transition. If we concentrate our resources for those who has already good jobs, good skills, and so on, we forget the gap. So we have to work in this way. And in this way, the twin transition is a test of coherence. I think that we have to ask us, for example, are we using digital tools to really support the environmental and social goals? Are we thinking about the full life cycle of technology? And finally, are we preparing people to govern and to live and also work in this new reality? These are the questions that we have to ask us when we say sustainability, SDGs, ESG, green and digital transition. And we have a challenge in this vision about skills, because we have to understand that we need not only a very technical people prepared to measure all environmental indicators, but we need men and women who understands sustainability, understands sustainable side of the transition, but also govern and use digital tool for this. People who can understand the impact of this twin transition. In this moment, we have many education program that deals with only sustainable, only ESG, only SDGs, and not sustainability, green, and digital side. This is the point. Also, in the talent market, we need, and the report say this. We need AI and green competencies together. Many companies are waiting for us, looking for us. So, and I'm concluding why I say, and we say green and digital in vocational education and training and in planet goals. Because the point is to not to understand and let's stay ESG sustainability and SDGs in every single box, and to set up education program and training like basic module United, but we have to design skills, to design also training and education in this transdisciplinary way. That's the point. And from this, I follow two questions that I leave to my colleague. The first one is about the digital and technology side, and particularly about the artificial intelligence. So if AI is becoming, like I think, one of the powerful tools of our workplaces, but also I think in education, how do we make sure that artificial intelligence supports sustainability without creating problem? That is the first point, the first question that I leave to Giancarlo. And the second one, the second question that I leave to Nicole is in every transition, I think some people wins, some people risk to lose. But the question is, if we consider identify sustainability only with the environmental side, we do really a very fair transition? That question I leave to Giancarlo and Nicole. And I conclude with remember to us that twin transition is the best way to govern, so the governance, to govern to education and for justice and for a just transition. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stefano. Thank you very much for your presentation and for helping us reconsider the meaning of sustainability in light of the transformation we are experiencing today. And speaking of innovation, as you said, it's impossible to ignore the growing role of artificial intelligence. AI is transforming decision-making processes, organizational models, and at the same time, it raises important questions regarding governance, as you said, ethics, and social environmental impact of technology. And to explore these topics further, I'm pleased to introduce our second speaker, Giancarlo Puddu, Chief Innovation and AI Officer at Seed Capital Pro. And in his presentation, ESG governance and AI, he will examine the relationship between sustainability, ESG, SDGs, artificial intelligence, highlighting why these topics must be addressed together and what the key governance and the management challenges are for organization and institutions. So, Giancarlo, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Proud to be here in this moment with you. It's the second time that I'm really appreciated the last time what we were able to discuss, even with the questions and the comments that I get and we develop together. So feel free to correct me and make questions. Otherwise, you can wait at the end. I will be very welcome to give some answer if I can. So it's a very difficult challenge. It's 20 minutes with me. It's not because I'm lazy, but especially because the challenge is very hard. We're talking about ESG, we are talking about SDGs, and we're talking about AI. So we are putting together goals, frameworks, and means. It will be enough difficult also in order to have such kind of down for that, especially for that. So have a quick look now about what was the handover from Stefano. I need to try to give an answer to this first question. And of course, we'll go together with you. And what is for me enough paradox that we are talking about something that, from some point of view, AI is not considered absolutely so ESG compliant, so ESG perfectly fitting framework of ESG, But in the same time, the paradox is that AI is now feeling a lot. It's fitting a lot inside all the frameworks, all the challenges to handle in order to make reachable SDGs and ESG. So starting from this kind of paradox, we have such kind of a journey. We will have a context about what we're talking about. At the end, I almost complete this part. We also have a look about after the tensions, the education impacts and governance responses, and what it's from SCP, Capital Pro, from our side. It's the answer that we try to give practically in order to solve such kind of problems. And then we can, if you have the time, also we can have some moment of workshop together using the land that we produced and developed for this kind of problem. So let's start from the paradox. Paradox is now in this moment we are especially focusing about the E of ESG, about the SDGs, about the climate change. We are talking about something like AI that is absolutely consuming a lot of power, electrical energy, and we are now living in a moment. Doesn't matter now about the geopolitical crisis, but there are a lot of investments, trillions about AI, and this is very absolute in this moment inefficient from climate point of view. Of course, it means a lot of money, but especially a lot of resources from environment that are impacted from this topic. But from the other side, as I said before, we are now living fully deep inside in our decision model, decision structure. And so in the decision structures, we are living AI like an essential, very important part. So in this kind of paradox, it's a sort of vicious circle. We need to find a solution. What I can say from a point of view of innovative framework, it's typical that everything this is innovation is effective, of course, but it's not efficient. From some point of view, it's normal. It's not just a question of a hype. It's normal in this process. But of course, the implementation of AI, the investment, all the strategies about AI are absolutely impacting the environment, creating pressure, tensions. So we have a lot of also other kind of pressure working in order to have working AI inside our ecosystem. Just said about environment, but also for organization. Of course, it's also for individual a very important load. It means absolutely a good opportunity. As I said before, Stefano, but can be also a very difficult challenge where someone can lose. So it's very difficult. Usually, ESG can give us a factor in this framework, very important, in the G, the governance. So it's not just a question to use better in order to be more productive. We are not so interested in this moment about to be productive, of course, not in this moment. We are now focused about the governance of such kind of mean. And AI is playing also a role inside the tension in ESG, because we have three factors, three criteria, but they work sometimes even without AI. They sometimes not work very well each other. It's typical ESG tension when we try to make more protocol and governance and framework to manage our decision, and we are producing more pollution. Of course, can be tension with the S and G when we decide, for example, to make not a revamping, but a new equipment, a new shop floor, efficient from a point of view of the environment, but maybe with the duty or the need or the occasion to fire out persons from work. So maybe one old equipment was working with 10 persons. Now it's absolutely perfect fitting for environment, but we need to fire out maybe persons that in this moment are not able to make process of upskilling or reskilling. And so are many also about the ETNS and other things. Technically about the land, with the land of AI, our problem is typically the capability divide. When a work is full of AI, like we are living now, we are losing maybe a part of these persons, and we are not just losing the old ones, but maybe also who has not the resource, the money, the time, or other things in order to be absolute now upskilled about this kind of use of AI. Then, of course, it's also a problem that sometimes we are also maybe in idea to be clever to use AI. Maybe we are missing a lot of it. So our ambition is bigger than our abilities. And also this is also impacting about our normal lives, like trainers, like employer, like manager, like everything, because many of these algorithms now are working about us and they use maybe bias. Who knows about that? It's usually a black box. It's not so easy to understand. And I can imagine who is now is HR and people of culture and need to make some, to say, hiring of person, how it's using AI and how AI can sometimes give also good answer, but also bad answer. So it's a problem sometimes also of data justice. I don't want to spend a lot of time now about these points because it can be maybe interesting for questions. Just to have an idea, we are so in a very big, not confusion, but technically a reach of protagonists that sometimes can beat each other. So let's take from Stefano 𝗪𝗧 and try to make something more deeper inside this problem. We try to make impact also, especially about that, because of course, in this situation, we need to manage also how we manage our relationship, our lessons, our way to teach, train, to be coached in this situation. This is very important because sometimes we are present from both sides. From one side, because maybe we are leader, former, manager, trainer, educators. From the other side, because we are educated, we are learners. And this situation is very difficult sometimes to find a good equilibrium, a good framework. And of course, AI is impacting about SDGs, like also in adults. So it's not a bad note. It's not like Giancarlo. It's just say bad words against AI. Of course not. It's very important. Essential mean, and the impact just to have a good look is about these 7-8 points SDGs scores. What is important is that we have not to be ruled by the tools, by the mean, and going down better, go a few deeper inside the topics. What kind of risk or typical situation can now stress teachers and trainers, but we can also use other words like managers, like the chisel. It doesn't matter now. Now we decided, of course, teachers and trainers, but not just them. First of all, in early preparation, everyone almost in our team has an idea what is AI. Maybe someone is also very curious. Maybe bring home the duties, start to use AI, not in a bad way against the organization, but maybe because we want to be more productive. And start to use AI outside the environment that is working, this kind of ecosystem that maybe is under special policies, special frameworks, special duties, and bring you home job is not a bad idea, but also is not so clean. And this is typical the situation of the shadow AI. It means when a person in good intention, bad intention, anyway, they use something outside the organization physically with devices or with maybe also LLM, maybe also applications that are not maybe compliant. Maybe yes. And this can be a very pain point, very big pressure. This can also, of course, open a maelstrom inside the compliance of this company. Of course, there are other cases here. Typically, this moment is very difficult also because some politics have decided to be very protagonist about that, to have a synthetic media. How is it possible to recognize something that is real or not? It's very difficult, especially if you are not trained. But if you are trained, and maybe you're under pressure because it's not question of capabilities or skills, of kinds. You are reading a lot of dossiers, many documents, and at the end, something is maybe created by AI. Problem. The one is now reading maybe letters written by hands. Anyway, in order to be sure about the source, this can be a very important topic. And also, when we are tutors, we can be helped by AI. We have also get a new competitor. Maybe our approach is in one way, and our worker, our learner, our student, everyone is taking from us our knowledge, our expertise. Maybe find another instrument that is say exactly the opposite. And typically, in this situation is work with psychopathy, where LLM typically say you every time, yes, of course, it's amazing, and blah, blah, blah. And such kind of tutoring, of course, is not so, to say, clear. It's not a question of black box, it's a question of LLM. It's a tool in the shop floor of a company. The company needs to make money. And of course, if you start to have a very strong, perfect, absolutely without mistakes, LLM, that is very clear to say, us, stop, Giancarlo, you are doing not good. You are absolutely say something wrong. Maybe you can be a few touchy. What consumer of this kind of LLM. So in this slide, you can find many situations where there is pressure, maybe good, maybe not. And this is very important, again, to take evidence of the governance. Despite all, if we are teacher, trainers, learners, pupils, we have to clear, share it, the governance of what we are doing. Otherwise, it will be like a sort of trick, and not so working well for the organizations. That's to give an idea. They're not just my nightmares, what I'm saying now. Here is a slide about some evidences where there is professional pressure. Almost everyone is under pressure because they need to be skilled. It's changing. Also because AI dynamics, it's very quick. Today maybe it's good. The best it's X LLM. Tomorrow will be another. Then will be a new release with new things, new features, and you start to feel yourself like losing a big ocean. It's a very problem if you are using AI for your duties of work, and then all the other things. But especially one, I repeat, I left the word pupil because, of course, when we are also working like teachers, but also maybe some ecosystem with person very young. Okay, I can feel a lot of concern over some things can be inappropriate. Who will be? Chairman will say, yes, you can use or not, can't. It's very difficult. It's a pressure. Again, it's a decision. Maybe when I started to make some kind of job of their role, it was not an idea to have to land. So again, it's very important, especially in vet, especially, but not just, especially in vet. There's such kind of professional pressure are clear and shared with the organization. Otherwise, it will be a very difficult moment, very frictions moment, and other things. So it's not absolutely good. And that's why also we have impact on the surface of that. Pedagogical design, assessment and evidence, the learning agency, all these parts are in this moment affected and impacted by AI. We need to find a way put also these tags working well in our process. It's not so easy. Who will decide? CEO if it's a big company. But this is more, maybe the same person that is a decision need to do something very practical. Not the time. That's not the time to go to search to find a solution for this problem. But if everything looks like, I repeat, not so good, it's just because it's a challenge, not because it's a bad situation where we are playing now. This also helps. A very important part, it's typical. Every time we need to manage innovation, not just AI. Starting from when steam engine arrived and changed the agricultural techniques till today, it means we need to govern the value. Knowing that someone, yes, will be maybe lost for a while, we need to take him over. And it means find all the solution in real time, not just by design, in real time, to make assessment, to give learning support, to be also a good example. It's important in the classroom, like in our system where we are working. Also the interaction, talk each other about the use of AI. It looks like, sorry, want to be maybe I'm polite, it's like sexual education. It's not so very difficult topic maybe like this, but we are not so very far from. It means that the organization needs to have a clear idea of what is happening from top to the bottom of this chain. And it's also very important to have data governance. So today we are not time now to go deeper inside, but it's absolutely very important topic, absolutely. And of course, so in order to have a society few lower level and try to bring in evidence the governance, we have three models typically, no? The weak frame, everyone, the workers, the learners will cheat the AI. We know this happened, what we can do is okay, it's going outside with our documents, with our customer and clients, and stay home to play with the AI. Well, it's okay, that's very weak frame. Better frame, when we start to make a sort of methodologies of framework, start to make mediation with our AI, start to make something that is proactive, till arriving to have a special, well-designed, well-implemented strategy and so frame. And this is some example that we use. So, for example, in situation or in scenario or in a sector like hospitality, be clever to manage AI in order to be able to understand foreigners. That's absolutely important, but also to be able to understand that sometimes is AI bringing us to decide that maybe this person want to try to, if he's in Italy, if we're in Italy, for example, to eat pizza and not carbonara. We cannot delegate such kind of decision to AI just because we are lazy or we don't know. And of course, also in that situation, we are talking about something that can be not just task-oriented, but governance-oriented. So, just to be a few short, maybe because a few longer. I'm few passionate about topics, so maybe a few long. We developed something very important for teachers, for learners, for managers, for everyone. It's absolutely not just our invention. But maybe many of you knows yet this triangle. It's important to have means, objective, and results, such triangle, and on the sides, pertinence, efficiency, effectiveness. In this way, we can have a LAN able to immediately draw down the problem and try to make immediately a strategy or an action plan. Of course, in the word means it's maybe a few cold word, but this cold word it's in order to make from what is data, what is infrastructure, till arriving what is very important for us, people and culture. So resources are inside the means, but anyway, in this big soup, every ingredients are well defined. And anyway, we use all together because it's such a mixology, they are working with each other. And so, just to give an idea, when we want to test how is working AI in our organization, in order to our goals and objectives and so on, in order to have SDG priorities, but also ESG accountability, that means very important such kind of ending parts of this phrase, we can try to make an example and try to take evidences if our example is fitting this trial. For example, all our means are pertinent to our objectives. We are using AI. For example, I will give you a very practical example. Many organizations decided to adopt all possible LLM, ChatGPT, Code, Cohere, Mistral, Gemini, and so on. I am very illuminated owner, teacher, decision, and want to buy accounts for everyone. Okay, I don't know if quantity is better than quality first. Second, sometimes use each other in orchestration. Technically, this situation is orchestration, managing. It's not easy. You can try, for example, to ask ChatGPT to make a future lesson or plans for what you want. Take these documents in Claude, ask for, please, a peer review about this document, and go on this way. I can, maybe I'm not so clever to use, but I almost grow up with AI. Sometimes you feel inside the loop. It's not the human in the loop. It's your brain that constrains inside the loop. And so instead to be effective and efficient, instead of using that. So sometimes it's very important to have an idea of what we know, what we are able to know more in times, and what we are clever also to manage. In order to get objective and in order to be effective, we need to have results. At the end, goals is 2030, and this when they were written was 20 years ago, and now it's a few closer in the date. So at the end, we start to talk about efficiency. We started with this topic, and now I want to give back this. It's very important. We have not this very abused lemma, very abused word, efficiency results. Is that sometimes to be effective. Then when you start to be effective, you are able to solve your problem, start to be efficient with the problem of sustainability. But if you make inversion, you are absolutely maybe entering in a sort of strange orthodoxy about sustainability. Doesn't mean that you don't have to take care about this in design. It's part of the means. Consider how much it's expensive, not just for your wallet, but maybe for the environment. Then, when you decide that it's appropriate, this is pertinent, go to the results. And then, when you make sort of a brief, or you make a sort of escalation at the end of things in order to understand if you're working well or not, it's very important to have a look about efficiency. It's fundamental. So the end, is it in the bottom line? Is it also in the bottom line of the environment, not just about the finance? So here are some cards about the example where you can use this. Of course, it's moment it's showing a very easy approach, and it can be enough not so sophisticated. At the end, instead, if you start to use very well, you go deeper and deeper, it becomes very sophisticated, but able to manage all and handle all the challenges. Well, this also, I won't say everything. So what kind of drills, what kind of toolkit we can give to teachers, trainers, managers, and so on, also learners. First of all, be able to understand how many persons are using AI on job, for the job, of the job. And this is very important in order to avoid very big, incredible mistakes. You know, maybe from the news that a very big, important company, corporation of the Big Four presented to a government of Australia very important strategic documents. Then discovered that was all written by AI. It was not so good. The same for that situation. It was also very important from a legal point of view. So it's very important. Okay, let's use, first of all, disclaimer, then share about this. Then also we have to make a redesign of the assessment in order to have the ability, the capability to convert what is a typical approach. I have a problem, I have a task, please help me, in a government. And so all about the others. We proposed it, we show it with the triangle, it is square, other maybe more confident shape. But anyway, it's important sometimes also to stop for a while, start to have a plan, adapting, a drawing of what we are doing with the AI. So this is our takeaway, and I prepare for handover to 𝗦𝗂𝘀𝗧 𝗘𝗱𝘂𝗰. And for me, it was a very big pleasure to be with you, and of course, I'm very happy also if you have questions or other things to share and to manage in question times. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Giancarlo, for sharing this important perspective. It's really important to take into account all these economic, social, and environmental consequences of using artificial intelligence. And this brings us to the topic of our further presentation. We spoke about green digital transition, but there are some fundamental questions. How can we ensure that these transformations are truly fair and inclusive? Who benefits from change and who instead risk being left behind? And to explore this perspective, it's a pleasure to welcome 𝗦𝗂𝗀𝗧. She is a PhD candidate at the University of Turin. And in her presentation, Who Wins and Who Loses, Teaching Just Transition in a Changing World, she will guide us through the concept of a just transition, offering both a theoretical and a practical perspective on how transition can be designed to balance environmental sustainability, economic development, and social inclusion. So, Nicole, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Beatrice. Thank you very much. Thank you, Novareckon, for the invitation, for the participation to this webinar. I'm really glad to be within this project and within this partnership. I would like to bring to you a last reflection today about justice, mainly. We have spoke about ESG and the technology and artificial intelligence, thanks to the colleagues. This will be a more, let's say, yes, a reflection that I want to leave to everybody. And I'm really happy to share with you the results of my research on the academic perspective that I collected through some empirical cases. So I will start with a very important insight. We talk a lot about technology, but the idea is that within sustainability transition, there are not only technologies to be taken into consideration, because even if when we think about transformation through sustainability, we think about, of course, renewable energy technologies, electric mobility, circular economy technologies, and digital innovations such as artificial intelligence we just talked about. In fact, we are not talking only about technologies, because we are talking about a systemic transition and systemic transformation. So technology is just a part of a much more broader socio-technical system, which is composed by infrastructures, regulations, organizations, so public and private entities, of course, markets, cultural values also. And at the very basis of these systems are individuals and everyday practices of these individuals. So when one component of this system changes, the effect spread across the whole system. And on the other side, if we wanted to change the system, we need to affect every component of the system, not only the adoption of a technology. So technology is not enough. For this reason, when we talk about sustainability transition, we are never purely technology, or it's never a pure technological discourse, because we talk at the same time about the social, the economic, the political, and the local and territorial processes of change. Therefore, we already talked about this. My colleagues introduced the topic about winners and losers, because of course every transition produces both winners, of course, this is what we want to produce, but also often losers, because socio-technical systems involve different groups of actors, different agents, and the impacts of this change are rarely distributed in a very equal way. So the same policy may create, of course, opportunities for some actors, and this is the main point of the policy, while it can also generate in cost for the others. And notably, the opportunities are taken by the people that can afford to take the advantage of this opportunity and of the policy. But on the other side, there are people that lack the resources to take the advantage of the policy, and therefore they are suffering the cost of the transition. I will give you a very classic and traditional example, and this is the main example that literature brought to us, but also the empirical reality brought to us, when we thought about a carbon-intensive industry that need to become more sustainable. So the idea is to allow this industry to reduce emission and to improve environmental quality, which is at the same time its quality of life for everybody who's living in the neighbors. Well, at the same time, doing such a transition can threaten jobs. And if there are many the people who are working in such industry in a community, we are affecting at the same time the local economies and so community identity as well. So to understand these uneven impacts is really important, because we don't want to have a sustainability transition which is unfair and socially unpredictable. We really wanted to manage the transition to be both environmentally effective and socially acceptable for everybody and for all the society groups that are living within the community where the transition is happening. Of course, this is a terminology, this is a concept, a reflection that also hopefully the European Union has done since 2021. We already have some policies that are bringing the concept of social justice inside the transition policies. So they decided to accompany, to help the Green Deal and other very famous green policies with some instruments to help the transition to become more fair and to, let's say, to help the regions and group of people that are suffering the most from this transition. So the concept of just transition, which has emerged thanks to the problems, because of the problems we registered within the sustainability transition within the industries in UK many decades ago. Then we have seen that this philosophical, let's say, concept has really came to the attention of the institutions. So international organizations, governments from every layer, so from the local to national to European governments and policymakers are increasingly finally recognizing that climate policies and strategies for green transitions could generate unintended social consequences. And the European Union has defined that the just transition through the just transition mechanism and the just transition fund, which is a process that tries to ensure that no person and no place is left behind while moving towards a more climate neutral future. So we really are shifting the attention from whether a transition should or should not be able to perform to how should we manage such a transition. So how can we assure that everybody is taken into consideration and nobody can be left behind this process. I really wanted to bring to you two main topics of this just transition, and I will use an example taken from my professional experience, my research, and I will start with the concept of intersectoriality. So the idea is to ask ourselves why sustainability challenges are all interconnected. We can take a very clear example that we all know with the help of the Sustainable Development Goals. SDGs are presented as separate goals, but as we can imagine, they are really all deeply interconnected. So there are some actions that are aimed to achieve one goal that can create positive or negative spillovers within one another. So they can also generate trade-offs, conflicts, negative impacts on the other SDGs. So as a consequence, sustainability problems cannot be addressed through isolated sectoral approaches that are not taking into consideration all the different sectoral SDGs impacts. They require system thinking. And we will see how much is important the system thinking at the end of this speech. So the ability to understand interaction across multiple domains is fundamental if we want to manage the sustainability transition in a fair way. I would like to do with you an example, a simple exercise. The idea is that I give you a scenario, which is the fact that you pretend to be a municipality in the mountain. So normally you are a small municipality, and you decide to invest 20 million, which is a lot if we consider the fact that you are a small municipality. And we want to invest this 20 million in a new snowmaking system for preserved winter tourism. Okay, so very clear policy action. The question here is how might this intervention affect the achievement of other SDGs? So I extrapolated a short list of SDGs, and I really like to think about with you on the effects that this simple policy action could have on the different SDGs. So let's start with the easiest one, which is the economic growth, SDGs number 8. Of course, as we will see also later with another example, winter tourism is the main income economy for mountain municipalities. Therefore, if we want to invest a lot of money to prevent the problems in this economy, of course, it's because we want to keep the economic growth increasing. Therefore, we will have probably a positive impact on economic growth. At the same time, we have climate action. We are investing in snowmaking systems because we want to prevent the climate change to affect our economy. And so we are doing something which can be related as a climate action. On the other side, snowmaking systems are very polluting because they need, in order to produce snow, we need a lot of energy and a lot of water. And therefore, we are at the same time, let's say, perpetuating some pressure on the environment, and so we are not helping the climate change at all. So we will have on the same SDG some positive impact and some negative impact at the same time. Then we have clean water. I just mentioned that in order to produce snow, you need to use a lot of water, and the same water could be used for agricultural purpose or for housing, general use, or for many other normal uses. So we are using common resources for an industry which is still polluting. Therefore, I will say that according to SDG 6, our political action will have a negative impact. If we think about life on land as the same concept, of course, slopes and lifts and infrastructures are impacting both vegetation and animals. Therefore, if we want to keep this regime going and if we want to expand this regime in order to be more resilient to climate change, we are affecting life on land. For what it concerns sustainable communities, this is an example of uncertainty. From one side, we can say that using the resources produced by the economic growth, thanks to the investment that we made, we can promote more investments in a more sustainable communities. But on the other side, we are taking these 20 millions and we are putting this money into an industry which is not very sustainable, and we could have used that money to promote more sustainable communities. So as you can see, there is really a lot of trade-offs and reflection to be made when we are thinking about a very simple and clear, with a clear goal, economic goal and social goal also, because we want to preserve our communities. It's not so simple. We really need to think a lot about the spillovers that one simple action can have on other SDGs and on other sustainability dimensions. Then there is another concept which is really important, and it's the intersectionality. This means that not all groups experience transition in the same way. So even when a transition can be considered as environmental beneficial, its impacts cannot be distributed in an equal way. And people experience sustainability differently, depending on their social and economic position. So depending on their age, gender, religion, social group, income as well. So intersectionality highlights how multiple dimensions of vulnerability and advantage can overlap and shape people's experience. So the same transition may create opportunities for some groups and vulnerabilities for others. And maybe there are some subgroups that have different layers of vulnerabilities that can overlap and make these people even more vulnerable to the sustainability transition. Let's bring again this example, because this is where the core of my research lies. So again, I would like to talk about ski tourism. As we have seen, there is this industry which is not really sustainable, and the environmental challenge is affecting the reliability of snow, and so the reliability of the industry itself. There are some current responses, which are some adaptation strategy, let's say. We have seen that it's possible to produce artificial snow. We can use infrastructure upgrades, so we can build more infrastructure which are placed in a higher altitude and with the slopes that are not sunny faced. But all these solutions have a very high operational cost. So there are some different strategies which are more sustainable and long-term strategies and alternatives, which are tourism diversification through soft tourism, sustainable tourism, four-season tourism models, and nature-based and outdoor activities that can be used and promote, which are, of course, more sustainable than the ski industry. But of course, the importance here is to understand the social challenges that are brought within any kind of alternative we are thinking about. So we need to first analyze which are the vulnerable groups of our communities. Let's think about seasonal workers, but there are some seasonal workers that could be even more affected from a climate change situation, from a sustainable transition. For example, ski instructors, which have a very peculiar, particular set of skills that is difficult to shift and to find for them another job where they can use these skills, which are really theirs. There are also, for example, businesses linked to winter ski tourism, which are affected, but maybe there are small tourism businesses that can be affected even more in a most important way. So from an intersectionality perspective, vulnerability is not only about occupational jobs. It is reinforced by different and overlapping factors. And in this context, we also need to understand that it's not only the economic dependence on tourism or, let's say, the kind of job or income that you have. There are other factors that can affect even more your situation and your risk faced to a sustainable transition. For example, the peripherality of your place. If you're working in a mountain which is not very well linked to city hubs, maybe if you are obliged to change your work, it will be difficult because you need to have a lot of travel from your home to the future work station where you can find a job. So there are really very different factors. Another one could be the altitudes of the lifts. If the lifts where you're working are at the highest altitude, maybe you will have more time to adapt and to change it, to find a way to cope with climate change. If you're not, then your time will be, you won't have so much time. So the same transition can affect people differently, depending on where they live and the resources they have. And this is our main point. But what does this mean, all these vulnerabilities for education? Well, if we have understood that sustainability transition are mainly socio-technical, intersectoral, and intersectional, then education should prepare our student to navigate complexity and to look beyond the simple solution. So students will need to develop competencies that can help them to understand complex systems, firstly, because we are speaking about complex and complexity. Then the learners should learn how to identify trade-offs and synergies and to recognize the vulnerable groups and the different layers of vulnerability that those groups could collect. And then they will need to engage with different stakeholders because the arena for sustainability transition is composed by many and different actors and organizations, and we really need to take into consideration all of them if we want to take the most fair solution. And finally, they will need to collaborate across different sectors. As we have seen, one decision taken into one sector will have impacts on many other sectors. So we really need to have a very systemic thinking approach. So a very simple exercise in this direction could be to start from sustainability intervention as the one I just proposed to you. And this is an exercise that my colleagues at the University of Geneva are doing with their students very, very often because it works. Well, we could start from a very simple, basic policy action, and then ask ourselves and our students who is benefiting from this action, but most important, who is bearing the cost and who will bear the cost in the future from this simple action. And then which SDGs are supported, are positively impacted, but also which SDGs may be negatively affected now and in the future. And finally, which social groups are most vulnerable and which groups will be even more vulnerable, facing the different layers of vulnerability that could be added at their other situation. So to recap, a very final key takeaways, we have seen that sustainability transition are socio-technical transformations, so they are systemic. We have seen that every transition can generate social consequences and can raise question of justice. Sustainability challenges are interconnected and require intersectoral and intersectional thinking. And of course, education plays a crucial role in preparing the citizens of today and tomorrow that could be capable of managing this complexity. Because a just transition is far more than achieving sustainability goals and environmental policies. It really implies to ensure that the path towards them is fair, inclusive, and socially legitimate for all the parties involved in the process. And that's all for me. Thank you again for your attention. I'm open to question and to discussion with all of you. Thank you again.
Thank you, Nicole. It's really interesting presentation. And we concluding this part of the webinar. So if you don't have any question, we can conclude the webinar. I would like to thank our speakers for their contribution and also their time. And I would like to thank you all for taking part to the second webinar of Planet Goals project. We hope that this webinar was interesting for all of you. And we look forward to seeing you at the upcoming events of Planet Goals project. And in the meantime, we would like to invite you to follow the project on social media channels to stay updated on project activities, news, and upcoming opportunities. And thank you once again for your participation.
Thank you to you, Beatrice, to Novareckon, for all the participants. It was a pleasure for us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you too, really. So see you in another occasion. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.
See you.
Bye.